What's up, party people? Corey Reyment, your host of the Wisconsin Investor Podcast. And I'm really excited about today's episode, guys. I'm going to get into that here in a second. But one thing I want to bring up right away, if you happen to know anybody in the Madison area, we at Wisconsin Discount Properties are expanding into that area. So if you're an investor in that area and you are not on our buyers list yet, I would love to talk to you about getting on the buyers list and helping you find some deal flow. But more importantly, we are looking for some acquisition specialists in that area. So if you know anybody that is looking for a career change, they're really good with people, really good at problem solving, those sort of things, we are paying a $10,000 referral bonus. So please get in contact with me and I can tell you more about how that referral bonus works. And we would love to see if we can help those people make a career change into the real estate investing world and help us continue to grow and expand and bring you guys all some great deals. So, with that, let me ask you guys something. Have you ever felt like you're doing a lot in real estate, but somehow you're not actually getting where you want to go? Like you got a lot of deals going on, money's moving, things are happening, but at the same time, it still feels kind of chaotic. Like you're busy all the time, solving problems nonstop. You're putting fires out over here and a fire out over there, and like you step away for a second, you go on vacation, whatever the case is, things break down or just completely come to a halt. And I was thinking about this a lot lately. We were on a little vacation with our team. We took our team to Mexico for a little incentive trip down in the Tulum area, and I was reading a book called Essentialism. All right. And what I realized is a lot of people think like what I described above, they're doing deals, they're getting rentals, they got a lot of flips going on, like they see that as like being successful. And on the outside it looks like it's successful, but they're doing like everything themselves. They're the acquisitions guy, they're managing contractors, chasing deals, doing their own bookkeeping, managing the rentals, like putting out all the fires. And again, a lot of people are like, oh, this person is so busy, like they're really, really successful. And it's just more. It's like more deals, more projects, more moving pieces. And the problem is like more doesn't equal better. In a lot of cases, it actually makes it worse. So in the book, Essentialism, the core idea is really simple, like do less but better. It's, it's summarizing the book for you there. Phenomenal book, by the way. If you've not read this book, this really got my wheels turning when we were on this trip. And so I realized like a lot of investors out there aren't stuck because they're not working hard enough. Like the work ethic isn't the issue. A lot of them are stuck because they're doing too many things that don't actually move the needle. And one of the biggest places I see this show up is how people approach finding and doing deals. So in this episode, I'm going to break down why doing everything yourself is maybe holding you back, why the best investors operate differently, and how shifting the mindset can help you do more deals with less stress. I think we all probably could benefit from that. So, getting into this today, what I realize most investors think growth comes from doing more deals, more marketing, more strategies, more markets. And again, I get it. Like we grew up in this hustle culture, but what I see over and over again is that complexity grows faster than the income. So you add in more deals, you get more problems if you don't have processes and systems in place. You got more contractors, more issues, more projects, you got more decisions. And now instead of growing and actually producing more income, you're just creating and managing chaos. And so I think a lot of people listening have probably felt that. Um, you know, you're making money, but like time is gone. And that's where like reading this book really hit me. And for me, I took away a lot of really, really good lessons from this book. As the owner of iBuyWI and Wisconsin Discount Properties, there's a lot of opportunity, right, that comes at us. And, like, oh, I could totally do that opportunity. That would be great. Um, but like, it's a decent opportunity, but it's maybe not the highest and best use of my time. And so it's like really setting up these filters that I've had to start to do of like, what is my highest and best use of my time? And that changes, to be honest with you, it changes for me a lot. But here's an example. I've shared this story on several episodes, but I bought a piece of property in Door County, and it had a big pole building on it, and then a pretty bad house on it. And I was like, well, this could be cool. I could rent out the pole building, which, by the way, I do not do really any of my own management unless it's like a rent to own situation. I'll still self manage those properties. I certainly don't do any sort of like commercial leasing on my own. So like a pole building, for example, like I don't even know how to market that necessarily or do anything. And then this house. So I had all these moving parts, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm getting a great deal. I was 1031 in something at the time. And so on the last episode, we just had Brandon Bruckman on talking about 1031s and all that. And one of the bad decisions we can make with 1031 sometimes is that we feel this pressure that we have to go buy something. And that was kind of where I was at. Like this opportunity came in. I was like, yeah, that'd be kind of fun to do this. And we have Airbnbs as well. So I'm like, you know what? We can redo this house and it'll be beautiful. And we'll rent out the pole building. We'll fix up the house. We'll make it really nice and we'll make it an Airbnb. It'll be awesome. It'll be really cool. What ended up happening, and that's not my core business, right? Okay, so my core business is wholesaling real estate. That is what most of my time needs to go to. And this ended up turning into a much longer project than what I needed it to be, right? And so here's what ended up happening, and I'm going to wrap this all into this book, Essentialism. So as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, duh. Like, and I know I've talked about this a bunch. I've made a bunch of mistakes with this deal. But what ended up happening, I had a contractor go through the house to start getting me quotes on fixing it up. And he came back to me and he said, hey man, I'm at like 110,000 right now on my estimate. And I'm not even done like going through the house. He's like, you might be better off just like demoing this thing and putting up a new manufactured house. And I was like, oh dude, can you even get him for that? He's like, yeah, probably right around the same amount that you're spending, you would have to spend on me redoing this house. And so I thought, oh, this is easy, dude. Demo this, put a new house up, decorate it, done. How hard could this be? And so again, didn't know anything about new construction permits, manufactured houses, like what has to go into them, how do you hook everything up, like nothing. I knew nothing. I just thought it was as simple as demo it, put a new house up. Did zero research, just went 100 miles an hour forward on this idea. And so I bought the house, went through the whole thing's a pain in the butt. I could do a whole episode on how to now I know how to do a manufactured house on a lot, which is maybe great for sometime way down the road when I'm not doing what I'm doing now. But it ended up taking so much of my attention away. And to be honest with you guys, I bought that thing in October of 2024. At the time I'm recording this, it is almost April of 2026. And I finally got listing pictures the other day to put it up on Airbnb. So it's been almost 2 years of time, energy, and attention that I can't imagine how many more deals I could have gotten in that time frame that were in my lane in the wholesale space if I would have been able to just stay focused and not be trying to do all of these different things. So that's an example of what we're talking about here. In that same time period that I'm reading this book, while we're in Mexico on our team trip, I was having conversations, some great conversations with some people on our team. And we're talking about goals and freedom and like why, one of our team members, we were having a conversation and I just asked like, why did you want to do real estate investing? Because a lot of people on our team invest in real estate on their own, right? And we had this conversation. I said, why do you want to invest in real estate? What was it about real estate that made you interested in getting started? And I think this is a good question for all of us to ask. Like, why are we interested in real estate investing? Like, why are you listening to this episode, right? There's something going on in your brain that's like, I'm listening to this to hopefully get some kind of nugget out of this or some kind of clarity or some kind of direction out of this. So asking that question, like, why real estate? Why do I even want to do this, right? And she said, I really want to do it for time freedom. I want to get my time freedom back and have flexibility in my life at some point. She wants to have a family and wants to have the choice to work or not work, right? And in the same conversation we were having, and this is no judgment because I do this in other areas, but she was saying they didn't want to hire a bookkeeper or a property manager because they thought they could do it themselves. And I remember thinking to myself, like, those two things don't add up. Like, you can't say you want freedom, but then you're choosing to keep doing everything yourself. And then the more I thought about it, I'm like, this isn't just one person. This is most investors. Like, we want more deals, more income, more freedom, but we're still holding on to all the control, the low value tasks, like the things they shouldn't be doing anymore. And it keeps them stuck. And so I think people do this out of control, fear. They got to save money, right? Like, especially when you're starting out. I think this is a really interesting thing. So for you guys out there in the audience, when you're starting out, you almost do feel like you have to bootstrap everything, right? Like, okay, I got to get in, I got to do the work on the properties because I have to make a bunch of money on this one because I'm like hinging all of my future success on this one deal going well, right? And I want to challenge you guys today, okay, in this thing, because what's happening is you're the bottleneck that's holding you back from really being successful. All right, so I'm going to give you a couple other examples in this. All right, so when we first started out, we had a great mentor. His name's Caleb Hayes. He was amazing, and I remember we were like only a few deals into our investing career, right? So we were not blowing this thing out of the water. Like last year, we did 170 deals. We weren't anywhere close to doing 170 deals, right? We were doing like three. Okay. And he told us something. I remember he said, "Do you guys have a bookkeeper?" And we're like, "No, we don't, can't afford a bookkeeper. We don't want to get a bookkeeper yet. We're not even doing that many deals to bookkeep." And what was great about Caleb is we would meet with him every month for a while until we, basically didn't need to anymore. And I remember he said, "Don't come back next month unless you have a bookkeeper hired." And we were like, "Whoa, okay. All right. Like, why do we need one right now?" And one of the best pieces of advice he said is you want to build your business for where you want to be in the next 6 to 12 months, not where you are today. Right. And that was a really good piece of advice that's always kind of stuck with me. Maybe even like further out, like you may want to build for the next 3 years. Like, where are you going to be in 3 years from now? If you don't build your business to match where you want to be in the next 3 years, you're going to be stuck in this phase of control and fear and like gotta bootstrap and save money and all that sort of stuff. Here's another great example, guys. We used to have a mastermind called Launch, and it was a small group of masterminds. I think we had a max of like 12 people in it. And we were down in Florida at one of the meetings, and Carrie and I were going through with the group, and we do an exercise called "What's Your Time Worth?" And I encourage all of you guys to do this exercise as well. And you don't have to sit with pen and paper and really do it too hard, but just do this rough example. And what we basically did was we had everybody in the audience, or our mastermind participants, go through and pencil out a deal that they did, okay, and then calculate how many hours roughly they had in that deal, and then what was their profit on that deal. All right, and we had to do a couple different exercises. So one of the couples in the group, they did the exercise and they had a deal where they had a contractor that they had hired. Good move. Get yourself out of the way. And this guy was a plumber, so he's very handy. Can do a lot of the work himself, right? He was planning to do a lot of the work himself. Like, he could physically do a lot of the work. Like me, if I went in, it's very easy for me to hire contractors. You don't want me in your properties doing stuff. Like, I'm not the most handy guy in the world. Um, but he was very handy. And so the tendency for him is always to get back into doing the physical work, right? And they were growing. They were growing pretty fast. So when he looked at this, the contractor was in there and kind of stopped showing up, did the classic contractor thing. So he's like, "Well, I'll just instead of hiring another person, I'll just get in there and finish this baby up myself," right? And they ended up making like 40 grand on this flip. It was like a really good flip, right? Nice work. Uh, when he calculated the hours out, I think he made like 300 and some dollars an hour or something like that. Still very good, right? For plumbing, he was making like $100 an hour. So for him, this was kind of an eye-opening thing of like, why am I still doing plumbing? Like, when I could be over here doing these flips and making way more money per hour, right? Then we had him do another deal. This was a rental property that he did, I believe. And they penciled it all out, and they had the manager do all the rehab and the work and everything else on it. And then we looked at the equity they created, and it was a lot less, right? It was like 20 some thousand, maybe $25,000. But when they calculated the hours that they had into this thing, he only had like the amount of hours they spent analyzing the deal, getting the financing, and getting the management company set up. It was like $1,500 an hour. Now, smaller margin, made more on the flip, right? Made more profit on the flip, but the profit per hour was way better on this other deal, right? And so what we talked about in there, he had just this, I remember he just had this huge epiphany. And what we talked about was like, he's like, man, he's like, if I were just building these systems and like finding the deals and finding the money and passing it off, how many more deals I could do 5 of these at a time, right? And now instead of making 20,000 once or 40,000 once over this 3 6 month span, I could have like 5 or 10 deals that I did in that same span for the 20 or $25,000. A little smaller margin, but I'm doing much more at volume and scale, and I'm not in there physically beating my body up. Right. So that was a huge revelation. And that was a big one story that I share with a lot of people, because a lot of times on the surface, it can seem like if we're in doing everything, we're making more. And yes, on that one particular deal, that may be true. But if we're able to reduce things down and get to the essential uh, activities that are going to be the most important for us, that are going to drive the business the most, that are the biggest needle movers, you guys will be way more successful doing that than you will be in trying to control everything. All right. Another example I'm going to share with you guys. We were having on the same trip. I had so many great conversations. So I'm having a conversation with somebody else on my team who's very, very successful with their own business, a husband and wife team. And they're still doing their own bookkeeping, right? And they're still doing their own property management, right? And they're getting a little bit stressed out, like they're kind of stretching the limits of what they can do. Now they do hire out a lot of the construction. They don't really get into doing any construction themselves, which is great. They can do a lot of flips that way because they've built a team of contractors and subcontractors and stuff that they can just coordinate who's going to be where, when, and what they want them to do, and they're done. Okay. But they're still doing the books, right? And I said, why don't you guys just hire a bookkeeper for this? Like, what's keeping you from hiring a bookkeeper? I said, oh, it doesn't take that much time. And I'm like, well, that's the trap, right? That is the trap, because I tell you what, doing your own books is one of the lowest value activities you can do. Same thing with property management. I said, why? What keeps you guys from doing your own management? Oh, I don't want to pay that 10% to a management company. I can do it. It's not that hard. And I was like, well, so when you get a call from a tenant, or a tenant doesn't pay the rent and you got to hunt them down for the rent, it still takes some time, right? And that's time that's getting taken away from your highest and best use. And so it's those little things that can just creep in. They don't take that much. It's just, it's not that worth it. I can do it. It's easy enough. Yet it's not your highest and best use. The other thing to ask yourself too, when we think about essentialism, is what you're doing bringing you joy? Okay. Is it filling your cup? I can tell you, for me, doing my own books absolutely does not fill my cup. In fact, it drains it pretty darn quickly. So even if it doesn't take me that much time, quote unquote, but I'm still in my QuickBooks categorizing stuff and doing stuff like that, like, it is draining to me and it does not bring me joy. Like, it is not what I want to be doing with my time. And so be asking yourself that too, even though you're starting out maybe and you don't have, quote unquote, the luxury to be able to do some of these things. Build for where you want to be in the next 3 to 5 years, not where you are today. And I think you'll see your decision making process change a lot. Another thing that I see here, another example where I see a lot of bottlenecks happen is deal flow. Okay. So how they approach finding the deals, like they'll say, like, I need to find my own deals to make the most money. And on paper, again, sounds great, sounds good, but let's actually break it down here. So what does it look like? Like, maybe you're out driving for dollars. Cold calling is another one, low cost, low barrier to entry to get into that. Then you got to follow up. You got to chase leads. You're spending hours trying to create opportunities. And what ends up happening, right? You're going to be inconsistent, most likely. Some months you find some stuff, some months you don't. Then, you're going to miss deals a lot of times because you're too slow. So, especially if you're working like full-time gig and you're trying to do your own deal generation, your own lead generation on your own, you're going to do maybe one deal in that time frame when they could have done like 3 or 4. Back to my story about the plumber, right? Make more on the one deal that you do if you have negotiating skills and you can be direct to seller and find your own. However, you missed how many opportunities that went right through your inbox or right on the market, right in front of your face, that you could have got. So you're missing out on maybe more of the volume play. But again, if you have some systems and some processes in place for that, or my favorite is the rental game. Especially what I found here is in Northeast Wisconsin in particular. So for those of my listeners out there in other parts of Wisconsin, I can't speak to this at this point, but in Northeast Wisconsin, we have a very unique opportunity where we have property management companies that do the rehab for us on these properties. Okay. So, like for me, when I'm adding rentals to my portfolio, it is so simple. I buy the property, I, I coordinate and tell the property manager when it's closing. They get the keys from the title company and they do all the leasing. I tell them, if I have some things that I want them to do. For example, we have one that we bought a couple weeks ago. I want them to separate the utilities out. Okay. We have the budget to do it on this deal. We got a good enough deal on it. We're just going to do it up front. So I direct them on some of those things like, hey, separate the utilities and then we'll start charging this. There's some other ones where we had to do we did siding, windows, roof. Then we're like, all right, great. Now we want to increase the rents. If they move out, we want to do this. Okay. So that's like the amount of literally that's like the amount of time that I'm spending. It's a conversation like what I'm having with you guys on this podcast. And then I'm on to the next property. I'm not worried about coordinating anybody necessarily. I'm not worried about, okay, I got to get this contractor in there at this time. Then I got to get this other guy in there at this time. And I got to make sure that I have, 3 quotes for this and 3 quotes for that. Like the management company takes care of all of that stuff for me. So I don't have to do anything other than buy deals. And that's it. So where's my highest and best use? It's just analyzing deals. If I just look at enough deals, whether those are deals on market, those are deals coming from other investors or other wholesalers, those are deals that our team brings in, like that is my highest and best use of doing that. I'm gonna give you guys an example. Profit per hour on this deal. We had a deal come to us that we ended up deciding to buy. And for those of you guys on our buyers list, by the way, everything that comes through our lead channels goes out to the wholesale list first. And then if nobody buys it at a number we want, then we buy it. Okay. So we had a 4 unit, came to us and we bought it. I will have like maybe an hour of time into this deal. And we just got the appraisal back. It came back 100 grand above where we think we'll be all into our cost for. And I have like, again, an hour into that. I mean, that's a pretty good profit per hour, right? But if I was stuck doing my books, if I was stuck coordinating and trying to self-manage these properties and getting pulled away because a tenant has a leaky sink and now I got to coordinate somebody to come over there and fix their sink, or the rent was late or something like that, that's time that I couldn't be spending looking at deals that come across our plate. So those are some examples, guys, to share with you where, think of like the biggest and best investors, they are not doing everything themselves, right? And again, you can say, well, that's because they're further ahead, or that's because they've been in it longer, or that's whatever excuse you want to make if you're not doing that right now. It's because they focus on these things. They focus on finding money, on making decisions, on scaling, right? And then they bring in sources that help them bring in opportunities consistently because they get it. Like their job is not to go out and like self-source and find deals. Their job is to own great deals. That's it. And I think once you understand that, everything really, really changes. So again, think about like, where are you right now spending time on things that are low value, right? Property managing your own. Some of them are bad. Like if you're house hacking and you've got somebody next to you and you want to self-manage that, like, I don't think that's gonna be the thing we're talking about. But again, think about where do you want to be in the next 3 to 5 years, and then reverse engineer what would you be doing if you were owning this company in 3 years? What would your highest and best use be? And then start building for that. So, I know like some of you guys out there, you think like, hey, if I buy a deal from somebody else, you're leaving money on the table, right? If I do my own books, I'm leaving money on the table. If I do my own management, I'm doing money on the table. But would you rather make a little more on one deal or be doing consistent deals, multiple deals over and over and over again? Most people that get into real estate investing, like when I ask that question, like, why'd you get into real estate investing? Nobody ever says it's because I want to do my own QuickBooks, right? Nobody ever says It's because I want to manage properties, right? Now, some people get into it and they actually find they really enjoy managing properties and they build a company around managing their own portfolios. Okay, cool. That's your own thing. But I don't know anybody out there that's like, you know what, when I grow up, I want to go manage tenants. That's what I want to do with my career, right? I don't think anybody ever really says that, right? People fall into it because it's a quote unquote necessity. When again, there's people out there that build companies and systems and processes around solving that problem for you so that you can build a portfolio to get you to a point of time freedom. Okay. If that's your goal, right? Flips are different, right? If you're looking for flips, that's going to be more your active income. But again, think about this. Like, what are the most successful flippers out there? Like, we have flippers that buy 50, 60 deals a year, not necessarily all from us, but just from different sources, right? Like, their job is to get lead flow or deal flow from other people. And they have deal flow from us, other wholesalers, realtors bring them deals, that kind of thing. And so their job is analyzing the deals, and they have crews that do all the work. Like, they're not in swinging hammers, right? Doing it at that level. And so again, think about that for yourself, right? These are the most successful people. Like, there's the old adage, if you want to be successful, just find somebody who's already successful and just copy what they're doing. And that's literally what we're talking about today. Those guys are not doing their own QuickBooks. Those guys are not doing their own property management, right? They have either built a company to do the property management for them, but they're not making calls to tenants. They're not leasing up their units. They're not coordinating somebody to come and fix the leaks. Like, they built a system and a team to do that. And so, for us, that's one of the things I think that's really beneficial for our investors out there at Wisconsin Discount Properties. Like, we talk about, like, we host it, so we do all of that problem solving for you, so you don't have to be out driving for dollars. You don't have to be out cold calling leads. You don't have to be out trying to negotiate, trying to go look at properties and do all these things. Like, literally, we tried to make this so easy for people. I always joke and say this, but it's true. I want people to be able to analyze a deal while sitting on the toilet instead of looking at Facebook or scrolling Instagram or TikTok. You can be trying to make $25,000 while you sit on the can just from analyzing a deal and putting in an offer. All from your toilet if you want to. All right. But it's really that simple. So we provide the inspection reports, so we get them inspected ahead of time. We provide a video walkthrough so you can like physically see the condition of some of the cosmetic stuff and the layouts and those kinds of things. And you can analyze it and run the numbers and get the emotion out of it, right? So I think sometimes that's another thing when people are walking properties, we can get all emotional, or we can think like all of a sudden now we're an inspector and we know everything there is to know about what's wrong with properties, when that's not the case. Like, when I walk through a property, like, I know what seems like it's a problem that I'm going to need to fix, or maybe there's some obvious things, but I'm not going to be able to catch everything like an inspector would, right? And these guys aren't perfect. We've definitely had issues where our inspectors have missed things, and so whether you're buying through us or somewhere else and you get an inspection, that's not always perfect, but it's going to get you close. And again, you're not the one having to go through and do it. Then you're outsourcing that to somebody whose expertise is in solving your problem for that exact issue. So those are a couple things, guys, that I think are really, really important. Having these conversations with people on our team have really opened up my eyes to this. Reading the Essentialism book, also same thing. Highly encourage this. Give you one last example. On the same trip in Mexico, going down to flips, we have a guy on our team, newer investor guy, and he had a property maybe an hour away from Green Bay. Doesn't live here in Wisconsin, so he works remote for us. And we were talking through this, and he is listing this property now that he was planning to buy and hold. And one of the things we talked about was like, man, he ended up getting involved. Like, he could have handed it off to the management company to do a lot of the work. Instead, he got involved in trying to do it all himself. Again, newer investor, not from here, doesn't have a ton of the contacts that some of these other people would have. Now, did he save some money? Maybe. But do you know how many deals he did? He had 2 deals that he did prior to this. Then he did this other deal that he tried to step in and do everything on. You know how many deals he did since then? 0. Because he's been, all of his extra time and energy is in trying to make sure everything gets done properly on this one deal. And we talked about it. I said, dude, how many deals do you think you could have did in that same time period that you missed? And he was like, oh man, he's like, I don't even want to think about it. I probably missed out on hundreds of thousands of dollars that I could have made just by focusing on on buying more deals. So if you're taking anything from today's episode is this, like doing more isn't the goal. Okay. Focus on the right things consistently. That's what actually is going to move you forward. So for a lot of investors, the shift looks like this: less time chasing deals, more time owning the right ones, more time outsourcing, because you don't get paid for how hard you work to find a deal. You get paid for owning a good one. So the question I leave you with is this: what are you doing right now that you probably shouldn't be? And what would it look like to remove that and focus on what actually matters? So, first of all, get really, really clear on what it is that you want to achieve. So, what is your future? What does your future life look like, and why real estate? And then, what are you doing right now that's not moving the needle? What could you focus on that actually matters? And if part of that for you is getting access to more opportunities without having to create them all yourself, like I said, that's exactly what we've built. That's what other wholesalers out there are doing. Let them do it if you're out chasing deals. Um, if you want access to those deals, you're not on the list, just reach out. We'll get you plugged in. But either way, take a step back, be honest about your business, right? The goal is not just to stay busy. The goal is to build something that actually works for you. Again, I don't know anybody who got started in real estate investing for the reason of wanting to manage tenants. It's not usually the goal. All right. So think about that for yourselves, guys. What is the reason you got into this? What did you get caught up in doing if you're doing this business now? What are the low value tasks that you got caught up doing? And how do you start stripping that away? Build a company for what you want it to look like in the next 3 years. Start today. Start putting people and processes in place. Don't come back if you didn't get the bookkeeper by next episode, right? Like that. That's the advice that I got. I would encourage you guys the same thing. If you're still doing your books, go get that bookkeeper outsourced. If you're managing your own properties, get that off your plate. Again, it may seem like it's not taking much of your time and you're saving money every month, but how many deals are you missing because your time, energy, mental capacity is spent there? The other question to leave you guys with: what are you doing right now that sucks your energy and does not bring you joy? Boom, get that stuff off your plate. Easy one, right? Strip it away and then focus on the activities that are your biggest needle movers and the ones that actually fill your cup, that actually bring you joy, right? So, guys, I'm going to leave you with that. We're going to wrap here. I appreciate you listening. If you're still listening to this, to my 30-minute ramble, I really appreciate it. But I had some really good nuggets from that book I wanted to share with you guys. If you haven't gotten it yet, I'll put a link in the show notes for you to get the book, Essentialism. Great book. Highly recommend it. And please share the episode, guys, if you get some value out of this. I'd also love it if you've listened this far. Please go leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening to. If you're on YouTube, just subscribing and share and commenting on the videos is super helpful for us as well. So until next episode, guys, we'll see you then.